So in case you're interested, this is what the G6r looks like in sort of an exploded view. So you can see from the back we have our cap. This is the rear body. You can see the entire firing assembly here, the bolt on the top, the ram. Of course, the bolt actually attaches into the middle of the ram on an Intimidator style poppet. You can see this is the poppet valve here. So the ram would, of course, hit the back of the poppet. This is the main spring. This is the obviously front of the body. You can see the LPR and the HPR attached into there. Here's your trigger frame, of course the assembly being the trigger, your battery and board, as well as the ASA on the bottom. Got a bunch of screws and grips and stuff. I guess I could put these over here somewhere too. Doesn't look so good. Oh well. So that's basically what it will look like, and you know, on the inside. So now I'm gonna try and put it back together. Alright, so we're gonna try and get this thing back together. First things first, as I go here, I'm gonna basically give you the rundown of the stuff that you have to re-lube. Obviously, the poppet being the first thing that goes back in is gonna need some Dow 55. That's the important stuff, Dow 55. Make sure you're using that. So, with the poppet, first thing I'm going to do is just drop it into the body there. I'll attach the spring back onto the top. Now with the body here, put the spring in, and basically you're going to see the very bottom of the body is what connects first, and it fits really snug, so actually without the screws and everything you can see it stays together. So once you've got it in place, go ahead and tighten those screws down. I'd recommend just getting this one, get the first one to stop at the end, don't tighten it yet. So you get this one down there, and just evenly tighten it down. You don't want to tighten down one side while the other side is still floating in the air, because you could damage your body. So there's that. Body's back in one piece. And we'll put the screws back into the eyes. Make sure I'm looking at the right ones here. Okay. So there's that. Grab a detent. Bring this over here. Grab a detent and a spring. Oh no. There we go. So drop the detent in. Drop the spring on top of that. Now make sure you get the right eye cover. That would be it. Now these little tiny Allens you really don't need to tighten very tight, so make sure it's snug. There you go. If you wrench down on that, it's definitely a possibility that you can strip it out. And believe me, if you can't get your eye covers off because you stripped out the screw, you're going to be upset. So I'd say be careful with it. It is a really small piece. Basically, electronics is all that it's holding in, so it doesn't have to be, you know, welded on there. It doesn't have to be super tight. Just put it in nice and snug. Do the same on this side. So of course when I took all this stuff out it was pretty clean because I've done this. I haven't used this gun for a little while, but you want to make sure when you take all the eyes and the detents and stuff out that you basically give that place a nice clean. Just because any debris in your detents means that there's going to be a chance that they don't work correctly. And same with your eyes. If there's a bunch of dirt and debris in there, they won't be able to see each other very well. So what I would do is grab a Q-tip. You don't have to do this very often, but you know, maybe every once in a while, take apart your eyes and just take a Q-tip and clean everything out in there, because you're going to make sure that everything in there is working correctly and smoothly. So next thing we'll do is grab the frame. So this part's pretty tricky. As you can see, I'm kind of fumbling around with it. It's good to use an Allen wrench or two to just get these wires around. But do be careful. You know, I'm taking my time here just because I don't want to pinch any wires anywhere, anything like that, because that's the kind of stuff that you really don't want to have to worry about, because the electronic stuff is just frustrating. So when you put this in, just make sure that as you can see, there's a sort of bracket on the inside of the grip here. You want to make sure that the power connector goes through the hole here, because if it goes underneath the solenoid this way, it can actually get pinched up against the bracket right there, and you really don't want that. As you can see, they sit really close, so make sure it goes underneath the kind of hole, the opening there. It's actually it has to go right next to the tournament lock button on your board. So once you have those wires through and everything and this all closes up, just make sure there's nothing being pinched anywhere, and close her up. Toss some screws in. Get the Allen wrench that you dropped off onto the floor. Alright, now this one's a little bit trickier. It might be tough for me to show how to do this, but my personal preference, the easiest way to do it, is to get your screw onto your Allen wrench, flip the gun over entirely, get an idea of where the hole is, and then should be able to find it without too much of a problem. And I think that started. Obviously it's pretty much impossible for me to show that screw, but there we go, it's in. And again, snug these down at the same time. Don't tighten them too much until they're both in. You don't want to put too much stress on the frame. So there we go. Frame back on. It's starting to look like the gun again. Next thing we're going to do, we may as well throw on our feed neck. I guess we did that first, but oh well. There's our feed neck. Oh, wrong one. Okay. So we'll get these connectors done up. Again, don't put too much. So when you're putting these connectors back on, line it up. You can go ahead and line it up with the wires themselves, but when you're pushing it in, I like to use an Allen wrench and just push on the sides of the connector. It's going to be the safest way to do it. So make sure the wires of this power adapter go behind the actual connectors for the battery. I know this is going to be really tough to see, but I can't really hold up the gun at the same time. So, sorry about that. Just going to get these connectors in. Okay. So, now we should be looking at these. Make sure the wires are all in their correct orientation. Okay, I'm even going to pop the battery in there right now. And let's see if we're in business. So, hit the power. There we go. Eyes are working. Good. Don't have a trigger though. Okay, so next thing we'll put in is the trigger. At this point, putting in the trigger is just like if you took it out when the gun was completely assembled. So what you have to do is make sure, so when you put in this trigger, you're going to see that as you can see right now, the spring is getting caught. So the easiest way to do this is to put the trigger into position and then push the spring up, just like that. Hopefully you could see that, but you just have to push the spring up and over the micro switch, I believe. That's what it gets stuck on. So then once you're in position here, center it in the hole and put in your trigger pivot, screw, turn that in, voila. And I guess I forgot to put in the ASA, so I'll pop the battery out. The ASA is kind of an annoying thing to put in just because of the orientation of the screws in there. So, where did I put them? Oops. Whoops. I'm going to try and get these started by hand. So again, sorry if you can't really see this very well. Maybe I can actually hold this up. I'm sure this video has all been zoomed out pretty far, so I'm hoping it's still effective. But if I decide that if it's not going to work for people to learn from, then I'll probably have to do it again. Every time I do it, I get a lot better at it, though. So that'll just teach you if you struggle with anything like this the first time. You know, after the second, third, maybe eighth time, you should have it pretty much under control. So there's the ASA. Put the battery back in. Alright, battery. Now, I guess we may as well toss the poppet and everything. So now, this is basic maintenance, what everybody probably should already know about maintaining a poppet gun. Take out your poppet valve, or not your poppet valve, jeez. Take out your ram, get whatever lube is on it off. I did that in the earlier portion when I took the gun apart. Clean it off. Just had to get some of that off my hands. Pop it back in the gun, and there you go. So with the G6r, I'm sure pretty much anyone that owns one knows how much of a pain this is, but try and get this back cap in. This is the way that I found was the easiest. So I grab it and I put in one side, making sure that that side of the O-ring gets pushed in correctly. And I'm sure you can't really see it, but the O-ring is being pinched in the back here. So now what I do is just grab whatever Allen wrench I have handy, push it down in, and that hasn't worked. Hold on, I need a smaller Allen wrench. You could use like an O-ring pick or anything like that, anything small. I'm sure lots of penis jokes can be made about that part, but there we go, and there we are. So yeah, it's a bit of a pain, I'll give you that. Anybody that disses that part of the G6r, I kind of agree with it. It's really kind of annoying, but whatever. Tighten her down and we're in business. So bolt I'll put in a second. Get my grips. Get my grip. Need to get a grip. apparently I cross-threaded this one. By the way, if you start to turn in any of these screws and you go like a half turn and it stops, I'd recommend not trying to wrench down the screw. Instead, back it out a little bit and try again, because you will ruin the threads. And from my experience, if you are going to ruin the threads on like a screw or anything on a paintball gun, the thing that's going to be ruined will be the body of the gun, not the screw. Usually the screws are made of steel, and the body, of course, will be made of aluminum. And in most cases, aluminum beats steel. So if you are struggling to put in a screw into something, whether it's, you know, a frame screw or something as simple as... Sorry, ran out of memory. I think I was talking about people breaking screws or something. Just be careful with your guns. I don't remember what I was talking about, but anyways, I'll finish this. And as you may have noticed, I haven't put the regs on yet, because I think I'm going to also spend a bit of time talking about the regs. Everyone was basically asking, well, a few people were asking for maintenance videos, basically what the procedure of maintaining a gun like this, say an Intimidator or even any just basic poppet valve gun is. So what I did today, that whole disassembly and everything, you pretty much never have to do that. I just wanted to do that to show everybody how it works and all that. To actually maintain what you see here, all you have to do, personally what I do is every single time I come home from playing for a night or for a tournament or whatever, I take out my poppet, clean it off, re-lube it, put it back in. As far as I know, you don't actually have to do that every time, but that's what I do. I also, personally, I don't know what the actual procedure is for this, but I grab a little bit of hater sauce and I put that on my bolt. You don't have to lube Delrin, but there is O-rings on here. I don't know if you're supposed to use Dow or what, but I prefer, I mean, on any bolt, like my matrices or anything, I always use hater sauce. Now, you're probably supposed to use Dow on the bolt, I'm sure, but I find hater sauce works really well, and I know it's going to be really, really slick in there, so I don't know, I just like to do that. I'm sure it doesn't really matter all that much. So, with that aside, the gun is back together. We'll see, so the eyes are working, and the solenoid seems to be working fine too, so there we go. That's complete assembly of the gun. Disassembly and assembly, actually. So that's pretty cool. Lastly, I'm going to go through the regs here. So I don't know how many parts this video is going to be. I don't know how this is all going to turn out.